Okay. All right, let's learn. First of all, it's good to see everybody back. It's really good. It's really good to start again. So this week's parsha, Parshas Beshalach, finally the whole process of Golos and Gula, of exile and redemption that we've been learning about the past couple of parshas, finally comes to completion, at least in a physical sense. In this week's parsha, Parshas Beshalach, the Jewish people finally physically leave Egypt. Right? And it culminates, and we all know the story of Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the Red Sea. And in response to that great miracle, and the truth is, all the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Jewish people collectively sing the song of the sea, Az Yasher Moshe Uvnei Yisrael. You know, they sing Az Yasher, Az Yasher. So the Gemara says an unbelievable thing. You know, usually when you have a Sefer Torah, if you ever, a person gets an Aliyah, you see the way the Sefer Torah is written. Normally, 99% of the Sefer Torah is written in a normal, line after line after line, in columns, normally. The Gemara says in Megillah and in other places as well, that whenever there's a song in the Sefer Torah, specifically this song of this week's parasha of Az Yasher, it's written in a different way. Instead of it being line upon line upon line in a regular column, it's written in a different way. It's called Arech al Gabi Levena. It's written as if the words are being layered like one who lays bricks. In other words, just like if a person were to build a wall with bricks, you stagger them. You don't put them just one on top of the other, right? With one push, the whole thing will come down. You stagger them, and you have some space in between the different layers to put with cement and fill with other things. That's how the Sefer Torah is written when it comes to Az Yasher. Again, the papers that I gave out just has a visual of what it looks like. You understand what again, a little bit of what I'm describing, that the words are staggered in such a way where there's empty spaces in the middle of the column. Again, instead of there being just line after line after line with no empty spaces in the middle of a paragraph, the song of Az Yasher is written in such a way where there's mamish empty spaces like one who builds a wall of bricks, where you stagger them. So the question is why? Why is it like that? Not only do we write that lechatchila, the halach is if one wrote Az Yasher in a Sefer Torah in a regular paragraph form with no spaces in the middle of sentences, the halach is the Sefer Torah is possible. It has to be written in such a way where it's staggered, where there's empty spaces within the paragraph. So the question is why? Why is it like that? Why is it necessary? What's the Torah telling us? that the song of Az Yasher has to be written in such a way where there's spaces davka in the middle of the words, in the middle of the paragraph. That's number one. Number two, in the Haftorah of this week's parsha, we lay in a parak in Shoftim, which has in it Shiras Devora. There's another song that the Jewish people sang. This is way later in history, during the times of the judges. The Jewish people, just quickly, a synopsis of what was going on. The Jewish people were having terrible troubles by the hands of the Midyanim, by the hands of Midyan, specifically by the general of Sisera. And through great miracles that Hashem performed for us, through Devorah and others, Hashem saved us from the hands of Midyan. And after, again, all those miracles culminated with the redemption of the Jewish people from that country of Midyan, Devorah sang a song. That's called Shiras Devorah. Now, Shiras Devorah also is written in Tanakh. If one, writes Tanakh on a cloth like a Sefer Torah, you have to stagger the words as well. Shiras HaDevorah. That again, you don't just write in column, line after line after line. You stagger the words in such a way where there's empty spaces in the middle of the paragraph. Empty spaces in every line. Now the last words, take a look, listen to this. The last words of that song are the following. The whole song is very, very poetic, and the last pasuk is like this. This is the last pasuk in this week's Haftarah. Kain Yovdu Kol Avach Hashem, after all the miracles, Devorah is singing about and how Hashem saved us. So Devorah ends off with a davening. Kain Yovdu Kol Avach Hashem, so too for all generations your enemies Hashem should be destroyed. Gitzeis Hashem Shvigrosa, like the sun comes out in its strength, so too Hashem you should show your strength to protect us. And the last lines are V'tishkad Aretz Abayim Shana, a historical event that for the next 40 years there was peace in the land. Now seemingly read the psukim in that last sentence, and there was peace in the land for 40 years, that's not a song, that's not poetic at all, that's completely different. That's now, the pasuk is now going back to the regular historical events of Judges, telling us that after this whole story was over, there was peace in the land for 40 years. But the problem is that line, there was peace in the land for 40 years, which sounds just like a historical event, that's also written part of the staggered formation of the song, which means that that's also part of the song. The song is, thank you Hashem for all the miracles that you've done. You're so unbelievable, you perform such great miracles, you should continue to perform miracles for us. and the land was at peace for the next 40 years, that's part of the song. So the question is why? What does that have to do with the song? That's not song, that's just history. So these are the things we have to talk about. So I want to talk a little bit about what does it mean a song? What does it mean? What's the inyan of a shira? What's the inyan of singing? And specifically by us, there's no, again, it's not a biblical obligation, but the custom of the Jewish people has always been that specifically on Shabbos, and on Yom Tov as well, but specifically Shabbos, the custom is to sing zmiros, to sing songs on Shabbos. By the Shabbos table, by davening, we sing as much as we can. There's such a thing about singing. So what's the inyan of singing in Yiddishkeit? What's the inyan of singing? So let me read to you a few words of Maharal. Maharal writes, this is in his Sefer Netzach Yisrael. Maharal was a great, you can't call him a philosopher, he was a Kabbalist, really. He was a Mekubal. He's a tzaddik as well. Listen to what the Maharal writes in Netzach Yisrael. He says, Ki hashir, when a person sings, that emotion, that a person just is overwhelmed by happiness or whatever it might be, and just breaks into song, Moira al shleimus. That comes from a sense of completion. When something is complete, when something is done finally and it's complete and everything is perfectly fitting in its proper place, that's when it's a time to sing. He says, Ki ala shleimus derech lezamer l'shar, because when something is complete, when there's shleimus, when there's perfection, when something is complete in such a way, that's when it's normal to sing. And that's when a person has the emotional response of singing. And he says the opposite. When something stops short, when there's a lack of completion, then the last thing a person wants to do is sing about it. The last thing a person wants to do is talk. That's why he mentions that chas v'shalom lo aleinu, if someone loses a family member and they're sitting shiva, so the halacha is you're not supposed to talk. When a person visits the shiva home, you're not supposed to just talk and schmooze like anything. You're supposed to be quiet somewhat. Because upon a death, the reaction and the feeling is that something stopped short. It didn't come to completion. Things are not shleimus, they're not in perfect form. Therefore, there's not this reaction of wanting to speak and wanting to sing. But when it's something there's sholing, when there's something that's complete, that's when the reaction is shir, to sing. In fact, the word shira in Aramaic, in the words of the Gemara, the word shira means a necklace. How do you say to say necklace in Aramaic? You use the word shir, or an animal, a collar around an animal. That's called a shir, because what a shir signifies a completion of something. When something is complete in full circle, everything comes to perfection. Now, that's all philosophical. So what does that mean practically? So listen to what Rab Tzadok writes. Rab Tzadok writes in a sefer called Dover Tzedek. He says the following thing. He says, the Torah itself is called a song. The Torah itself is called a song. All of Torah is called a song. So he writes as follows. He says, V'shira makefes kol hakaimis of Bnei Yisrael. A song means when after everything is said and done, you could look back and see all the different parts of the story. To see all the different parts of the story, how they all come together in perfect harmony to get to the end zone, to get to the final place of where you're holding right now. That's called singing. That's called a song. And he says that's why when the Chazal say that when Mashiach comes, the Jewish people are going to collectively once again sing a song to Hashem. Why? Because even though throughout Golus, and there's many ups and downs in Golus, and every person's life has ups and downs. There's many dark spots in a person's life. It's like a roller coaster, ups and downs, up and down, up and down. And when a person is in a situation of down, when a person is in a situation of Hester Panim, where you don't feel Hashem's closeness, you don't feel Hashem's warmth towards you in your life, you don't feel Hashem's presence in your life, the last thing you want to do is sing. Because that's at a time where you feel at this point in my life, there is no perfection. I'm completely missing. There is no completion in my life right now. But Dafka after Mashiach comes, Dafka after the story is over, when you could look back and you could see that not only at the end of the day did Hashem save me, but the Geula means, redemption means that a person is going to be able to he's going to be given foresight, he's going to be able to see, go back to his exiles and to go back to all the problems that he's had in his life, and he's going to be able to point and say, you know what, even in those dark spots, at the end of the day, those dark spots themselves were leading to my ultimate redemption. And Hashem was working things out in a mysterious way. And Hashem had to work these things out. A person has to go through problems, whether it be parnasa, whether it be personal relationships, family, health, whatever the things might be. A person has to go through these things because Hashem is working. He's working for us. And it might seem mysterious and it might seem roundabout, but at the end of the day, that itself is part of the process of redemption. That's what a song is. A song means all different musical instruments all different notes on all different levels coming together in harmony. If all you had is one note, that's not a song. A song means when there's all different notes and all different things that seem to contradict each other. Dafka, when they all come in harmony, that's called a song. That's called a song. And that's why he says, Vishiris Hazinu. For example, at the end of the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu sings a song of Hazinu describing the Jewish people in exile. He says, Makefes, that song incorporates and includes within it Kol HaKaimis of Bnei Yisrael, all the ups and downs of the Jewish people in exile. But Kol HaDoros in all generations. In all generations. The Seder HaEkev Hazeh Nikra Shira, and that whole long process, which includes within it ups, and includes within it downs, and includes within it Hashem's presence being revealed in one's life, and includes in it times where Hashem's presence seems to be hidden. That whole process, at the end of the day, will be Nikra Shira. That's all one long process. Ultimately we'll be able to sing about it. Because we'll be able to then recognize at the end how all those mysterious situations in life were for our benefit. And Hashem was working things out. He was working things out the way that it has to be. There's a Chaim Soloveitchik. He was, one of the great Rosh Yeshiva of modern days, of modern times. He said the following. Let's say a person would have such perfect faith. A person's, let's say, in a certain tzara. He has a problem with his health, whatever it might be. But he has perfect faith that Hashem will protect him, that Hashem ultimately will save him. So said Reb Chaim, even if you have that perfect faith in your heart, to the point of where you mamish feel happy, you don't feel scared at all from the sickness that you have. Nevertheless, there is no such thing as singing yet. You don't sing about it until you're eventually redeemed. And he said it's a pasuk in Tehillim. We say this every day by davening. The end of Hodu, we say this by Shachris. David HaMelech said, "Va'ani b'chazdcha b'tachti." David HaMelech said, Hashem, I have perfect faith in your chesed. I have perfect faith that you're going to redeem me. And right now I'm happy. Right now I'm happy because I know that you're going to save me. But when do I sing about it? When it actually happens. When it actually happens. Why? Why is it that even if a person could feel simple faith that I'm going to be saved, eventually Mashiach is going to come. But why is it that a person can't sing about it until it actually happens? The reason is because even though a person has perfect faith that he's going to get out of his exile, but the clarity of knowing that dafka because of this exile, that dafka right now that seems to be so dark, it seems to be difficult, that dafka right now Hashem is still with me, that's something that has yet to be revealed. A person can only sing about it, meaning, singing means that even the dark spots, even the negative notes, come in harmony with the positive. That could only take place ultimately when the Geula comes. A person can have a emunah that it's all going to be good, but to know clearly how all the negative parts in one's life were itself positive, that's something that's called a song, and that comes only when Hashem practically reveals it. Listen, Rav Tzadok writes in another place. Listen to this. Rav Tzadok writes, he's talking about different types of redemptions. There's different types of redemptions. Mitzrayim, for example, when the Jewish people were taken out of Mitzrayim, it was a complete geula, meaning that they went completely from slavery to complete freedom. And he says, and Rav Tzadok writes so too, in every Jewish life there is such a thing, that a person can be worthy of being completely taken out from his exile. The person is exiled, so to speak, he doesn't feel Hashem's warmth. Hashem could literally redeem him completely to the point of where he's completely freed from that problem, whatever problem he had. But Rav Tzadok writes, but you know what, there's another type of situation, where the person is still stuck in his problems. But nevertheless, there's some geula, there's some redemption that could take place even in that dark spot. Listen to what he says. The Yesh Yeshua, there's such a thing as a redemption, Sha'akadosh Baruch Hu Meir Lai, that Hashem shows to him and lights up the place to him, that Gam Kisha Yoshe B'choshech, that even when a person is sitting in darkness, Ve'eino Metziu Makam HaChosh V'Samavis, and he's not leaving. Hashem's not taking him out. He still has a problem with his health. He still has a problem with Parnasa. He still has a problem with school, whatever the case might be. He's still stuck in his problems. But nevertheless, Hashem is not taking him from that dark place to bring him to the place of light. But what's the geula? What could Hashem do for such a person? Hashem could give the person hope and give the person chizuk that even though I'm walking in the shadow of death, and I'm submerged in whatever problem I'm submerged in, nevertheless I do not feel evil. I do not fear evil. Why? Ki ata imadi. Because I know that even in this dark spot, you're still with me. The Hashem Yisbarach Meir Lai, Hashem will show him, Hashem shines to him, Dover Zeh, this reality. The Ata Imadi Gamba Makam Hatzalmav, said, you Hashem are with me even in this dark place. There is such a thing. There is such a thing that Hashem doesn't fully take you out of your tzara to say that, you know what, everything's going to be smooth sailing from now on. That's not the tachlis. The tachlis is that a person has to go through ups and downs. The tachlis is a person has a galus mitzrayim. Every single one of us has to go through a galus. The avodah, what we have to believe is that Hashem not only is eventually going to take us out, and literally take us out of exile. It's deeper than that. The depth of Gula is that Hashem is going to show us that even at the time of Golus, you were never alone. That's the depth, that's the oimik of Gula, that's the depth of Gula. And when a person appreciates that, that's called singing. Because singing, again, means when everything comes into completion. And completion means where everything fits in its proper place. There's nothing out of place. Everything is perfect. Everything fits. You know, that's why, you know, in the beginning of Sefer Shemais, it says, Eila Shemais b'nei Yisrael haboyim Mitzrayim. These are the names of the Jewish people that are coming to Egypt, that are going down to Egypt. So the question is, are coming right now? Why does the pasuk say in present tense? It should say in past tense. These are the names of the Jewish people that went to Egypt. What does it mean, Eila Shemais b'nei Yisrael? These are the names of the Jewish people, haboyim Mitzrayim, that are coming to Egypt. So the Sfarim say, you know what, because this is not just a historical event. Every single moment of every single day, there are Jewish souls that are Haboyim Mitzrayim, that are being placed into exile, in their own personal exile, their own personal Egypts. The word Mitzrayim comes from the word Meitzar, comes from the word constriction. The depth of Gullus is not just when you have someone standing over your shoulder making you build a pyramid. That's not the depth of Gullus. The depth of Gullus is when a person feels constricted and doesn't feel the light of Hashem in his life. That's Gullus. And Eila Shemais b'nei Yisrael haboyim Mitzrayim, and every single one of us, we're sent down to this world. That's what it means. We're sent down to this world into a state of exile, where we don't feel Hashem's light. What we have to be mechazek ourselves with is not just the belief that Hashem will eventually take us out of it. It's deeper than that. We have to believe that even right now, ki ati imadi, Hashem is still with us. And even though we might not be able to feel it, and therefore we might not be able to sing about it, well, we have to believe that it's true. We have to be mechazek ourselves with this. And it's not a simple thing. It's not a simple thing. That's why the word Gaila, which means exile, and the word Geula, which means redemption, they have the same exact letters. The only difference is the Aleph. The word Geula, the difference is that in the word Geula, there's an Aleph in the middle of the word. Gaila is missing that Aleph. That Aleph represents Hashem. Who's one? We say on Pesach night, right? Who knows one? I know one. One is Hashem. Aleph is Hashem. The only difference between Galus and Geula is the realization that there's an Aleph right in the middle of it. That's it. That's it. Everything else is a result of it. The depth of the oimik of Geula, the depth of Geula means that Hashem was with us ki'ati madi even right now, even in the darkest of times. That's what we need. That's the chizuk that we have to take. That's what it means to sing. That's why I mentioned, you know, going back to what we mentioned in the beginning, that every time the Torah is written, it's all just line after line after line. No empty spaces. No just blank spaces in the middle of a paragraph. But when it comes to Az Yashir, the song that the Jewish people sang after the Golus of Mitzrayim, after the Gula of Mitzrayim, it's written in such a way, as you see by the papers, those that have it, that it's written in such a way where the letters are staggered, where there has to be empty spaces in the middle. So yes, why is that? Why is it that halacha says there has to be empty spaces? The answer is because the words, whenever you have words always represent Hashem's light. The Aleph base, that always represents the ability, the power of creation. Hashem created the world with the Aleph base. That means Hashem's light being infused into our lives. An empty space means when we feel that Hashem's light is not entering our lives. It's empty. There's no words, there's nothing, there's no Aleph base filling us up. So usually, it's just line after line after line, and if you're empty, there's emptiness. The definition of a song is not like that. The definition of a song is what? That dafka, it has to incorporate within it empty spaces. Why? It's telling us, and it's telling every single one of us, that dafka, that a person has to be mechazik himself, that those empty spaces in a person's life are not separate from the letters. It's all one process, it's all one long construct. It's all one long thing. Hashem doesn't just take us from empty space to letters. Hashem reveals that those empty spaces were themselves incorporated into the long story. They themselves were never empty to begin with. That's why the song has to be written in such a way where there's empty spaces in the middle of the words, in the middle of the paragraph, to show that there truly is no such thing as an empty space. It's all connected to Hashem. You know, so I also mentioned, going back to the other question we asked, I mentioned that Shiras Devorah, the song of Devorah that's mentioned in this week's Haftorah, the last words of the song is the historical event that the land was at peace for 40 years. So we asked, that's not poetic, that's not a song, that's just a historical event. What does that have to do with the song of Devorah? You know why it's connected to the song of Devorah? Because if you look into Navi, that fact that the land was at peace for 40 years does not make any sense. It's not true. After the redemption of Midian, after the Jewish people were saved with the story of Devorah, there was peace for 20 years. After 20 years, they had other problems coming. So what does it mean that the land was at peace for 40 years? So the commentaries say, you know what the 40 years includes? The 40 years includes the 20 years that they were dealing with Midian. When the pasuk is saying that the land was at peace for 40 years, it includes within it the years where they had Midian on top of them. So what does that mean? The land was at peace? It wasn't at peace. It was terrible for 20 years. So the answer is that's a definition of the Song of Devorah. That's exactly what the song is telling us. The Song of Devorah is telling us that it might look like the first 20 years were miserable. Miserable, hidden. Hashem's hand was hidden. Midian was making us with tremendous troubles. And there was only peace 20 years later. Oh, that was Gula. Gula was 20 year later, after the 20 years of suffering. No. Shiras HaDevorah is telling us, and it's being mechazik us, you should know, that the oimik of Gula, what Gula really means, the song really tells us that even the first 20 years of terrible times, they were not so terrible. Because even though there was physical problems, but ki'ati imadi, the song is telling us, and it's being mechazik us, that Hashem was with us even in those darkest of times. That's what the Song of Devorah is telling us. That's why the song it culminates with that sentence that there was peace in the land for 40 years, which includes within it the 20 years of Golus. Because that's what Geula means. Geula means not just we're out of the exile. It means that the exile itself was part of was part of Hashem's process, and the exile itself, Hashem was with us as well. That's the oimik. That's what Geula means. So, and this has to be mechazik. This is not just true, obviously, on a collective national level. The Jewish people with Mitzrayim, or the Jewish people with the story of Devorah. It's for every single one of us as well. And this is something we have to be mechazik ourselves with. It's not easy. Sometimes it's easy to believe that eventually our Geula is going to come, that eventually we'll be taken out of our problems. It's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy to believe that, but that's already one madrega. But it's deeper than that. We have to believe deeper than that. We have to be mechazik ourselves with emunah even further. That not only will eventually we'll be taken out of our problems, but it will be revealed to us that during the problems itself, Hashem was with us. This is the inyan of Shabbos. This is the inyan of Shabbos. And every single Shabbos that's given to us is for this purpose of being mechazik us. Listen to this. I've mentioned this medrash before, and it's one of those midrashim that you could talk about for a long time. It's a crazy medrash. Listen to this. We know the story of Cain and Hevel, right? The two brothers in the beginning of human history. Cain killed Hevel, his brother, right? We know that. And we know that eventually Hashem said to Cain, well, where's your brother? And we know the story that eventually Cain was punished, that he's going to have to wander the earth aimlessly. So the medrash says the following thing. Medrash says that after Cain had this discussion with Hashem and was given his punishment, so he left the room, wherever this nevuah took place. Paga by Adam Rishon. So the Medrash says that Adam Rishon met Cain, his son, and Amrullah and Adam Rishon asked him, what took place? What did Hashem paskin? What's your punishment? So Amrullah, so listen to these words. Amrullah, so Cain said, Asisi tshuva, I did tshuva v'nispasharti. And me and Hashem, we made a deal. We made a deal. I did some tshuva, and me and Hashem, we came to an agreement. Instead of me being killed, I'm not going to be killed, I'm going to have to wander. So Hischel Adam Rishon v'tapech al panav. So Adam Rishon started slapping himself. And he started slapping himself v'omer, and he said, Kachi koichel shel tshuva. That's how powerful tshuva is. V'ani lo yisideh. I didn't know how powerful tshuva was. If I knew how powerful tshuva was, I would have done even more tshuva after I ate from the tree of knowledge. Miyad Amar Adam Rishon v'Amar. So immediately Adam Rishon, after hearing the great power of tshuva, he got up and he said, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos. The song of Shabbos. So we say on Shabbos. What does one have to do with the other? What does Shabbos have to do with tshuva? What's going on over here? So the answer is that Shabbos. Listen, what did Cain say? Cain didn't say I did tshuva and my aver was forgotten. He said I did tshuva, and me and Hashem we struck a deal. What does that mean? That means that Cain was saying to Adam Rishon that not only that, Adam Rishon knew that such thing as doing tshuva and the aver is wiped clean. What Cain was saying is that I did a certain level of tshuva, that my aver was not wiped clean at all. Aver is still there. But I was nevertheless Hashem was able to tolerate the aver, and nevertheless He's able to connect in my life despite the fact, and maybe because of the fact that I did an aver. The deal, I made a deal with Hashem that even though I have this problem with me, I have this chisaron, I have this problem. Nevertheless, I'm able to come close to Hashem despite that, and sometimes because of it. So Adam Rishon said, Kachi Kaidel Shal, that's how tshuva is able to do, that not only is it able to wipe things clean, but even before it wipes it clean, you're nevertheless able to connect to Hashem with all your problems. That's Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos. That's exactly what Shabbos is. Shabbos tells a Jew that even though all that would happen during the 6 days of the week, with all the problems and all the darkness and all the issues that one goes through during the 6 days of the week, nevertheless, when it comes to Shabbos, a Jew is able to be mechazik himself, that even if that stuff is not wiped away, even if I still have all that stuff on my cheshbon, even if I still have all the tzaras, nevertheless, when it comes to Shabbos, a person is able to connect to Hashem. And Hashem is able to become one with you, with all your problems. With all one's problems. That's the song of Shabbos. That's why we sing on Shabbos. Because the song of Shabbos means that a Jew is able to come to the conclusion that I don't have to wait to be taken out of my darkness to become close to Hashem. Even within the darkness I could become close to Hashem. That's what it means. Cain said, I made a deal with Hashem through my tshuva. And the Rishon said, that's Shabbos. That's Shabbos. That's why the word Shabbos, the Sfarim say, is Rosh Tevis, stands for the following words. Shir Bai Tashir. That one has to sing a song on Shabbos. Shir Bai Tashir is Rosh Tevis Shabbos. Because that's what Shabbos is. Shabbos is telling a Jew that not only can one come close to Hashem when one cleans himself out of all his problems, but one can come close to Hashem even while one has all his problems. I've mentioned this before. There's a story. The Baal Shem Tov had a custom. He used to eat Friday night. He used to eat farfel. He used to eat farfel on Friday night. He said, why? Because a Jew has to remember that everything that happened during the 6 days of the week, it's all fafalin. It's all fafalin, so he used to eat farfel. What does that mean? It means it's falling away. It happened. Things happen. Things happen. Not that, eventually you have to do tshuva on whatever a person's issues are. But when it comes to Shabbos, a person has to be mechazik that, whatever it is, I could carry it all with me to Hashem. It's all okay. It's all okay. For this one day, I could come close to Hashem despite, and maybe through all my issues. Through all my issues, like Cain said. Asisi tshuva v'nispasharti. Now listen, there's another medrash about Shabbos. Listen to this. It's a strange one. But according to what we're learning, the medrash is telling us something very fundamental. Medrash says, it's a medrash in Tehillim, Kol iska de Shabbos kafel. Everything about Shabbos is double. Everything about Shabbos is double. For example, Omer kafel. This week's parsha, the mun was given to the Jewish people, right? So every day they had one portion of mun. Shabbos, 2 portions. Friday was 2 portions for Shabbos. So 2 portions of mun for Shabbos. Karbanai kafel. The karbanis that we bring on an average day are 2 sacrifices that are in Olah. When it comes to Shabbos, we bring 4. The karbanis of Shabbos are double. Einsha kafel, the punishment for someone who breaks Shabbos, it's double. The pasuk says, "Mechaleleh," someone who desecrates Shabbos, mais yumas, will surely be put to death. A double punishment. Mizmar kafel, the song of Shabbos is doubled. Mizmar shir l'yom haShabbos. Mizmar shir, 2 songs for Shabbos. That's what the measure says. What does that have to do with anything? What does it mean that Shabbos is double? This is exactly what the measure is telling us, that Shabbos, a person coming into Shabbos has to remember, your entire life doesn't have to look, singular in order to come close to Hashem when it comes to Shabbos. When everything's perfect, when everything is right, when everything is clarity, that's one. That's one long process. That's one thing. The doubleness of Shabbos means that a person could literally be living a double life. A person could have parts of himself that are unbelievably great, and parts of himself which are unbelievably not so great. But nevertheless, Shabbos is able to absorb both. Shabbos is able to absorb both, and a person is able to come close to Shabbos, dafka with one's duality, with this, with this dichotomy in a person's life. Everything about Shabbos is double. The gifts of Shabbos, the punishments for Shabbos, the song of Shabbos, because Shabbos is able to incorporate all things. That's the chizik. That's what Shabbos is. That's why again, like I said, you have to sing on Shabbos, because the song of Shabbos means that there are no parts missing. All different notes, all different instruments come together in harmony on Shabbos. That's what Shabbos is. That's the chizik that one has to feel on Shabbos. And again, we shouldn't, obviously, when a person goes to the mikveh or whatever it is that you do, you take a shower, you get ready for Shabbos, the Storm do say that, I'm sure people are aware of this, that if a person goes to a makubal, someone who truly is a makubal, they're sometimes able to tell what a person has done on their forehead that week based on what's written on the person's forehead. The Sfarim say, though, when a person takes a shower Friday before Shabbos, the forehead is wiped away clean. And a makubal isn't able to read what a person has done that week if you see him after you took a shower Friday afternoon. Because that's what Shabbos is able to do. Shabbos is able to make this pshar, able to make a deal with Hashem. You know what? I didn't do tshuva yet. All I did was take a shower. That's all. But nevertheless, the contamination of the week is already put away to such an extent that a person could come closer to Shabbos with all the difficulty, with all the complexity of the 6 days of the week, with all the contradictions in one's life. It's all able to come in harmony to Shabbos. That's the song of Shabbos, Shir by Tasher. Shir by Tasher, we have to sing songs on Shabbos. That's what it's about. A person has to be mechazik himself with this. That there's no point in one's life that's completely void of Hashem's light. There is no such thing. There is no such thing. And it might not seem to us, like I said, it might not be revealed to us in a physical way. We may not be able to point and say, oh, this point in my life, which was so miserable, I see clearly how Hashem is with me. But when Mashiach ultimately comes and our Geula collectively and individually takes place, we'll be able to go back and sing a song of Shabbos, sing a song of Golus. We'll be able to sing about it. You know, Chazal say an unbelievable thing. The Medrash says that when Mashiach will come and all the exiles will gather together and enter Eretz Yisrael, the Medrash says that the last moment on the border between Chutz La'aretz and Eretz Yisrael, all the exiles will turn around and look back to all the countries of the exile, look at all the problems and all the pogroms and all the issues that every individual had to go through in exile, and will look back and will say, oh, it was so good then. It was so good. And not only will we say it was so good, there'll be part of us, the Medrash says, that will be wishing we were still in Golus. That's what the Medrash says. Because the clarity that's going to take place when Mashiach comes will be so intense that it will be clear that right now, that the difference between right now and Mashiach is here, there's no difference at all. It's all the same. Hashem was with us then, like He is with us now. It's all the same. It's all the same. That's the chizuk we have to take from this week's parsha. The song of Az Yashir is such a way. That's why, by the way, the beginning, the opening words of the song is what? Az Yashir Moshe V'nei Yisrael. Yashir, simply it reads that then the Jewish people, Moshe Rabbeinu, sang a song. But we know that Yashir is Lashon Asid. It's the future tense. Literally it means Moshe Rabbeinu and the Jewish people will then sing a song. So Rashi says this is hinting to the resurrection of the dead. That eventually, that the Torah is hinting to us a concept that even though Moshe and the Jewish people of that generation are no longer here, but they'll come again. There'll be a time where they'll be back and they'll be able to sing their song again. Why, of all the places the Torah choose to hint to me over here the concept of the resurrection of the dead? The answer is because that's exactly what a song is about. The depth of Shir of Az Yashir is telling us that even death is not final. Even death itself eventually will be incorporated into redemption. With Tchias HaMesim, with the resurrection of the dead. And we'll see that death itself is also part of that song. That's, again, it's something we may not be able to see right now with our eyes. We have to believe that it's true. This has to be mechazik us. I'll end off with a story. Again, I don't know, it just popped into my head, so I don't know how much connection there is, but we'll go with it. There's a tzaddik that lived in the second half of the 18th century. His name was Ramoshe Leib Sassover. Ramoshe Leib Sassover was a big tzaddik. He was, besides being a Talmud Chacham and a tzaddik, he was known specifically for his Avos Yisrael, for his love for other Jews. He did whatever he can to help other Jews. So the story goes that one time, and he was also particularly very much involved in collecting money for poor people. That was the thing that he was very much into. So the story goes that one time there was a certain Yasam and Yusama, two orphans that were engaged to get married, and they didn't have enough money not only to make a wedding, to rent an apartment. They didn't have anything. So Moshe Sasser spent a long time and with a lot of effort to raise money for these two orphans. And eventually he did. He raised enough money. He made a nice wedding, and they lived in a nice apartment or whatever it was for those times for them. And it was great. And it was great. And not only that, so Ramoshe Sasser, first of all, not only was he a tzaddik, and he was the one that collected the money for them, so they gave him the kibbud of the Masad Kedushin, right? He was the one that officiated the wedding. So, and everybody saw at that wedding that he was taking a particular simcha in this wedding. Like, he helped a lot of people, but this couple, just, he put in a lot of effort to help them, and they were a very nice couple, and it meant that he was shepping a lot of nachas from this wedding. So during the wedding, when everybody there was this, obviously the band was going and people were dancing. So Ramoshe Sasser was sitting there, and he was mentioning to a few of his talmidim that were around him. He said, "This song that they're singing right now, they were singing a particular song. The band was playing a particular song, and he was seeing that the chassan and kala were dancing with such happiness on their faces. He said, you know what? I wish that it would be like a dream of mine that I'm escorted into the next world with this song. Unbelievable. I'm feeling right now this song is causing so much simcha to them, it's causing so much simcha to me. Halavai, I should be escorted into the next world with this song." Okay. So it's a statement. It was forgotten. Many, many years later, Moshe Leib Sasser passes away. So the tzaddik Moshe Sasser passes away. His levai is obviously with many, many people, and everybody's gathered together. And after all the eulogies and all that, they're bringing his body to the cemetery. So on the way that they're bringing the body to the cemetery, a band of musicians were also passing by. And it happened to be, it was the same musicians that were there at that wedding years ago. So for some reason, as the band was passing by this village, they were not by the center, they're just passing by the village, the horses of the band of these musicians started to go crazy. The horses started to go crazy, and the horses started schlepping the musicians completely out of the direction that they were supposed to go. And eventually the horses just naturally brought the musicians to the cemetery. So they're looking what's going on, so it doesn't make any sense. And they see there's a whole commotion, there's a whole lot of people being involved in some burial, so they ask what's going on. And they say, Rav Moshe Sasaver passed away, and now we're burying him. So this triggers the memory of one of the musicians. He says, Rav Moshe Sasaver, it's crazy, it can't be. It can't be. So no, it's Taka Rav Moshe Sasaver. He said, I'll tell you, when you guys remember, we made a wedding for Rav Moshe Sasaver, and we were around, we were playing a certain song, and he said to his Chassidim, and one of the Chassidim told us, that he said his wish would be that he would be led into the next world by that song. So it can't, it's a mamish miraculous thing. It can't be that we're here for nothing. So they asked all the rabbis, they told them what's going on, and they paskined. How halachically you're allowed to do this, I don't know, but whatever, it's a story. They paskined that it's okay, and the musicians in the middle of the cemetery, as they were burying Moshe Sasaver, they played that song. They played that song. So the will of that wish of Moshe Sasaver, that song should be played by his burial, the taka took place miraculously. That's what we're hoping for. The truth is that, not that we're hoping for this specific thing, but what we're all hoping for is that the song of our lives, we should be able to appreciate in our lives how everything comes together in a harmonious way. That's what we're all hoping for, all waiting for. Not only that we should be taken out of our gullus, but it should be revealed that our whole lives was one long song. And that's what we're hoping for. And eventually it's going to happen. We just have to be mechazik ourselves with faith that it will take place, that it's true and it will be revealed. So the more we realize this, and the more we work on ourselves to be mechazik ourselves with this belief, we'll surely be able to see with our eyes the fruition and the completion of this long song of Galus coming with the Bis Mashiach Tzedkeinu, B'meher v'yameinu, Amen.